everyone, Tory here from the Old Man Mountain. Today we're going to install a divide rack on this Yeti mountain bike. This rack is eyelet ready out of the box. If your bike does not have eyelets, upper or lower, we provide fit kits for both through axle and QR skewer mounting. For this divide install on this mountain bike, we're going to need a set of side cutters, 4mm hex key, 5mm hex key, 10mm open end wrench, a torque wrench with a 4mm hex insert, some grease, and I also need a 6mm hex to get the axle out of this bike. With this rack, you will receive front extenders, rear extenders, dropouts, and hardware kits 1, 2, 3, and 5, along with your divide rack frame. First thing we're going to do is take our dropouts and mount them to our rack frame. We're going to grab the rack frame and orientate the end to where it is facing us with the rack upside down on the table. Go ahead and place your dropouts on the table, this being dropout 1 and this being dropout 2. We're going to take dropout 1 and place it on the inside of the rack tab on the right side of the frame. And we're going to use hardware kit 1 to secure the rack dropouts to the frame. For this install, we're going to be using the shortest settings in the dropouts. For your install, you're going to want to refer to the chart here. Before we snug up the dropouts, we want to make sure that the dropouts are parallel with the rack frame. So we're going to want to bring this one over just a tad to where everything's parallel and then snug it up. This Yeti mountain bike does not have standard rack eyelets, so we're going to use one of our through axle fit kits. Fit kits are going to include either a through axle or a QR skewer, our pucks, clear protective tape, some heavy duty zip ties, and our hardware kit. Be sure you use our supplied zip ties. These zip ties are industrial grade, have a metal tang, and are UV stable. First, go ahead and remove the stock through axle. Take your stock through axle and line it up with the through axle that came in your fit kit and make sure that the length is correct and that the thread pitch is correct. You may need to use the provided spacers. Go ahead and grease the Robert Axle Project through axle, threads and shaft all the way down, and install it into the bicycle. Hand tighten the axle, then grab your M5 wrench and put it through the pass-through hole and torque the axle to the equivalent of 12 Newton meters. Now we're going to install the drive side axle in. We're going to grease the threads. Take the supplied washer, put it in between the axle end and the dropout. Thread it hand tight. And take our 5mm hex wrench through the pass-through hole, torque it to the equivalent of 6 Newton meters. Now we're going to take our divide rack and place it on our axle ends. We're going to need to spread the rack over the axle ends so it nests into the dropouts. We want to make sure that dropouts have the angle orientated this way. With the rack properly installed, the Old Man Mountain logo will be readable from the drive side of the bike. With our divide rack on the axle and pretty much level, we're going to use hardware kit 5 to secure the rack to the axle ends. So we're going to take our 4mm hex tool to secure these dropouts to the axle ends. Just going to snug them up for now. Now we're going to install our clear protective tape on the seat stays. We just want to make sure that this stuff does not overlap with itself. And we want to line it up with the rim. Now we're going to go ahead and install our pucks with the hex facing the tire. Now we're going to install our supplied zip ties. They do not ratchet, so they can snug up as tight as possible. We're going to allow them to rest a moment so we can snug them up a little bit later in the install. Now we're going to take and mount our extender with hardware kit 6 to the puck. Now we're going to take hardware kit 2 and attach the extender to the inside of the rack crossbar. Now with the rack in the level position, we're going to go ahead and torque everything to spec. Our M5 hardware, being the huck and axle hardware, is going to be 3 Newton meters, while our M6 hardware, the dropouts to rack and extender to rack hardware, is going to be 6 Newton meters. Now we're going to do one final pull on the zip ties. You can either use your hand or a set of pliers. Pull it as tight as you can. And then we're going to trim those off with either a set of side cutters or a set of nail clippers. Works great as well. Now that we have this Old Man Mountain Divide rack mounted up on this Yeti mountain bike, it's time to get lost.